Hi everyone, and welcome to the Movement Image. Today we're going to talk about a film that's near and dear to my heart, Repo Man. I first saw Repo Man in my early teens, and now, a lifetime of punk later, I still relish every opportunity I have with the film. Repo Man is an abrasive look into the dystopia of the early 80s, capturing a mood that's not too different from our current one. For those who haven't seen Repo Man, here's a synopsis. Otto, played by Emilio Estevez, is an LA punk going nowhere fast. Caught in a dead-end grocery store job and recently spurned by his main squeeze, he's pretty jaded and down on his luck. While Otto fumes over his undesirable situation, a stolen 1964 Chevy Malibu is cruising the streets of LA, stuffed to the gills with radioactive alien remains. Otto's future gravitates towards this Malibu when he quits his supermarket job and meets Bud, played by Harry Dean Stanton, a Repo Man. Otto joins the Repo ranks and overcomes a series of adversities as he learns the ropes. The film culminates in a race between members of the Repo community as they vie for the Malibu and its massive $20,000 bounty. Repo Man captures the listlessness and cynicism of corporatized society in a way that's familiar for many of us. And there's a reason why it feels familiar. It's a symptom of nihilism. Alex Cox sprinkles this leveling philosophical concept throughout Repo Man as a commentary on our modern world. In what follows, I'll discuss and contextualize Nietzsche's concept of nihilism, and then apply that outlook to Repo Man. Nihilism was ushered in with Nietzsche's famous declaration that God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him. As this statement has grown in popularity, a lot of people have taken it to be liberatory, as if we're freed from the shackles of religion and can now pursue science and certitude rather than trifling matters of faith. Problem is, Nietzsche didn't see it this way. The statement is liberatory, yes, but when Nietzsche said that God is dead, he recognized that it wasn't just a problem, but probably the largest problem Western civilization had ever faced. For almost 2,000 years, Christianity provided people with a direction and purpose in life. With the underpinnings of Christianity now under question, our direction and purpose became frighteningly unclear. Nihilism stems from this lack of clarity. At its core, nihilism is a fundamental reassessment of all values. As Nietzsche describes it, all the values by means of which we have tried to render the world worthy of praise have proved inapplicable and therefore devalued the world. What this means is that the beliefs we're born with often don't align with our experiences. We set out in the world expecting one thing, but experience something entirely different. This damages our perception of the world, because we lack certainty that our actions matter. For an example of this, let's take an early blow against Christianity. Christianity is built on the premise that man and God are the center of the universe. But Copernicus' revelation that the Earth revolved around the sun proved that's not true. While this opened our eyes to an important truth about our universe, it also undermined the system of beliefs we rely on to motivate ourselves in life. Nietzsche felt that Christianity's focus on truth and honesty made the rise of nihilism inevitable, because our search for an honest understanding of our world led us to question more and more about our experience. Nietzsche said that nihilism arose not because we lived too far from Christianity, but because we lived too close. As tenets of Christianity began to fall, like the assumption that humanity was the center of the universe, Christianity's fundamental truths were called into question. The questioning this led to became problematic, because at our core, we need a meaning in life that grounds our experience. Nietzsche said that we are the one creature who needs periodic assurance of why we exist. Without this to guide us, we float through our existence, often feeling like something is missing. The effects of this can be disorienting. Which rationale is appropriate for a given circumstance? Whose truth is paramount? What form of justice should we meter out? Christianity may have had many shortcomings, but it certainly had an established pecking order. Without that certainty, we're left with a near constant cycle of questioning. We've come to think of the nihilist as that brooding intellectual who dresses in all black, but that's not really the case. It is everywhere in our modern world, but there are gradients to its presence. Standing at opposite ends of nihilism are two forms that Nietzsche spoke of: passive nihilism and active nihilism. As Bernard Regenster puts it, passive nihilism is the weary nihilism that no longer attacks, or the resignation to a world inhospitable to our values and ideals. The passive nihilist is a herd animal who has resigned themselves to a listless existence. They might not be aware of their lacking belief, but it's shown through their willingness to trudge along and avoid the difficult questions of life. The passive nihilist recognizes problems with the world, but they don't take the strides necessary to address those problems. They blame them on other people, cling to comfortable values that have lost their meaning, or accept that's how things are. Because of their unquestioning acceptance, Nietzsche says the passive nihilist will never escape the emptiness of nihilism. In contrast to this, we have active nihilism, which Nietzsche describes as a violent force of destruction. Fueled by their refusal to accept the world, the active nihilist looks at the world and sees an opportunity to bend it to their will. Active nihilism is a critical nihilism, where artificial meanings don't fly under the radar, but are called out and overcome for being as such. The active nihilist pushes past the failings of the old values to create new ones through their actions and example. They're not bothered by their limited agency and affect, because they've achieved something more important. They are an authentic expression of who they want to be, and unburdened by antiquated values. In Nietzsche's eyes, the active nihilist is the only one who can push us through this period of disbelief. In Repo Man, we find a film dripping with nihilism. Its setting, characters, and plot all play up dystopian elements, driving home the meaninglessness we find in modern society. As stated before, the film follows angst-ridden punk Otto as he tries to reconcile his countercultural life with the expectations thrust on him by society. Just like us, Otto is floating through life, haunted by that same feeling that something is missing. Otto is disillusioned by the workings of society and struggles to feel he's living an authentic, meaningful existence. Repo Man wastes little time in showing this disillusionment. In one of its first scenes, we find Otto at his dead-end grocery job alongside his sometimes friend, Kevin. As we watch Otto price boxes of generic, and I mean generic, products, we see the frustration boiling beneath his surface. As the manager approaches to criticize Otto's work, Otto loses it, knocks over the grocery display, and quits his job with an enviable bravado. This episode is followed by other difficulties that jade Otto even further. His girlfriend cheats on him with his best friend, and his parents donate his money for a trip to Europe to a televangelist. All this is furthered by Otto's frustration at the worthless tools society has provided him for dealing with these problems. This frustration is shown through Otto's cynicism in this scene, where he sings about people watching popular television shows in lieu of talking about anything of substance.
We're just dedicated. to our favorite shows.
Saturday Night Live! Monday Night Football! Dallas! Jeffersons! Gilligan's Island! Flintstones!
This scene shows us what's happening in Otto's life. His expectations of society aren't being met, and the tools for solving his problems aren't readily available. The result of this is Otto's increasingly cold and cynical approach to a meaningless society. The film's cinematography helps show us Otto's turn from society. Repo Man is a road movie, and Robbie Mueller, the cinematographer, is legendary for his road movie work, having filmed Paris, Texas, and Until the End of the World with Wim Wenders, as well as Down by Law and Mystery Train with Jim Jarmusch. Repo Man's emphasis on the beauty of the open road conveys something simple. Otto enjoys searching for more in life. Following his first repossession, we see this enjoyment firsthand when, as Otto is driving the car away, he laughs and smiles for the first time in the movie. Being a Repo Man is exhilarating for Otto, and taking control of his life in this way shows him a path he wants to travel down. The liberation of the open road is contrasted by internal shots, which are typically drab and dark. These shots often point the camera towards the exit or large windows, tantalizing us with a big, beautiful world that's waiting to be explored. Just like how Otto felt lifeless in his grocery store job, that same drabness is present in the repo lot office, the home of clients, and many other places. By filming in this way, we're given distinct visual cues that show us how Otto dislikes constraint. He craves the freedom of the open road, and when he's not free, neither is the camera. It's stuck in place and facing the exit, waiting for its chance to get out. There's a simple reason that Otto longs for freedom in the way that he does. Otto is an active nihilist. As we watch him meet hardship after hardship, Otto doesn't cower from his desires, but confronts them. He doesn't do what he's told, he does what feels right. We see this played out again and again. When talking to Kevin about his future, Otto laughs at the fear of not having a solid career. When he encounters his criminal friends, Otto gravitates between pity and disgust, never tempted to return to his old, depressing lifestyle. Finally, when faced with the ultimate decision to either settle down with Lila or head off into the wild blue yonder, Otto chooses the latter, taking the final step away from the comfortable yet meaningless confines of society. Otto's cavalier attitude shows us how he embodies Nietzsche's active nihilist as a violent force of destruction. Otto spurns many of the safeguards that people tell themselves to curb their desires. The film is about repossessing cars, but one could say that a larger theme is Otto repossessing his life from an empty, failing society. We might not agree with every choice Otto makes, but we do respect that he makes them, and that he's not appealing to some higher authority. In this way, Otto makes Nietzsche's transition from being one among many to a true self who is an authentic expression of who he wants to be. In contrast to this, a lot of the characters and concepts that Otto encounters in Repo Man ooze passive nihilism. In more of an existential critique, we have the generic products that populate the shelves in the film. These generic products convey exactly what Nietzsche was speaking about with nihilism. Things have lost their meaning, and this manner of consumption is just a way of going through the motions. These products wear their emptiness on the outside, highlighting the meaninglessness of consumer capitalism. Another example of passive nihilism is the way so many of the film's characters search for a prescribed ideology to fill the void in their lives. There's Otto's parents with the televangelist pastor, Light with the Scientology knockoff diuretics, Bud's insistence on the Repo code, and Lagarta's fanaticism for the military and law enforcement. It seems like everyone in the movie thinks they have the solution to Otto's problems that will lure him back into society. But it's never hard for Otto to see just how superficial and flawed these ideologies are. Otto's parents are vegetables on the couch, which isn't exactly a glowing endorsement of the choices they've made. Bud tells Otto about his repo code and that only an asshole gets killed for a car, but he gets killed for the Malibu. Light talks about diuretics, but doesn't seem to care about anyone or anything but himself. With his military and law enforcement background, Lagarta is supposed to uphold truth and justice, but he's a total piece of shit. These examples illustrate how lost people are in modern society, and the ways they try and fail to fill that void. Though the film is satire, the way Repo Man conveys nihilism is similar to our own world. When confronted with nihilism, many people just follow the example of others while trying to shoehorn a Christian hierarchy onto whichever ideology they prefer. This is not what Nietzsche wanted. Nietzsche didn't think Christian values needed to be eliminated or have their hierarchy emulated. He wanted us to create new values that would allow us to push past them with something that worked better for us. As Bernard Regenster puts it, to succeed in overcoming nihilism, then, the reevaluation of values need not establish that Christian values are not values at all. It need only show that they are not the highest. This is what Otto is doing throughout Repo Man. He's embracing his nihilistic spirit and pushing past the tired worldviews that others hold. He's not accepting the things that are impressed on him, but creating new values for himself through active nihilism. Nietzsche wanted us to create seductive values to replace those we lost in Christianity, and Otto is doing this. There's not a solution for nihilism, but there are better approaches that can help us overcome it, and Otto's on the right path.